So another wonderful day, and yes, you get to join me here on the Joy Book Club. My name is Benjamin Akakpo, and today we're reviewing another wonderful book. We've reviewed quite a few so far, and the next one we're reviewing is, are you ready? The Ones We Find by Ama Pomaa. The Ones We Find. Whom have you found? Well, we'll discover that. It says everything on the line. How far would you go? Especially when love is in the mix. Well, interesting picture. But before we get into the dynamics of this book, I'm going to come to my guests. You'll get to know them. Then I'll give you my literary fun fact, and we'll continue from there on the Joy Book Club. And guess who joins me today? Two fantastic women. We have in the blue corner. Would you like to tell us what your name is, who you are, what you do?
Thank you, Benjamin. My name is Akusia Nyansaland Akufuenso. I'm a student at the University of Ghana School of Law.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
You're well versed, very interested in matters of the law, huh? I see. It's good
Benjamin.
It's good to have you join the conversation. We also have
Glad to be here.
in the red corner.
Nelly Ajaman Jemfi, Director of Marketing and Communications for Academic City University College.
Okay. It appears we have scholars in the studio today. I hope they don't get too academic with the review. But here's my literary fun fact for you today. Something simple but interesting. I'm sure some of you, like I did, grew up reading Agatha Christie, some of her mystery novels and all of that. But did you know that she suffered from dysgraphia, which means she could not write legibly? And as a result, she dictated all of her novels. Yeah, I was stunned too. She dictated, spoke, and someone wrote down. She didn't write any of her novels. And there I was reading all of these mystery novels and thinking, oh, Agatha Christie. And she hadn't even written a single word in there. But she had out of her head. And that's my literary fun fact for you today. But let's get into this wonderful book, The Ones We Find. We'll start with the blurb and then a little bit about the author. Nelly, would you like to take us through the blurb?
Sure. So it says, something happened last night. 5 years ago, a chance meeting with Femi Uzuechi, I hope I'm not butchering that, changed Marilyn's life.
Even if you did, he's not here to defend himself.
Changed Marilyn's life, except for the part she keeps under lock and key in her house of cards. The line between her past and the one she wanted was long drawn in the sand. But all that changed on the eve of her wedding. When an urgent call drags Marilyn to work on her day off, a cryptic conversation with Femi leaves her with unanswered questions. Something happened last night, he says. Hours later, Femi is dead. An accident, suicide, murder, the police see no foul play. Neither does Femi's TV famous widow. But Marilyn can't shake off those haunting words. As she digs up the graves of Femi's past in pursuit of the truth, the cracks in her own life begin to surface, threatening to send everything she's built crumbling down. Every thread she unravels takes her a step closer to the shattered pieces of the girl she left behind, a crossroads she can no longer evade, and a killer with nothing to lose.
Ooh, a killer with nothing to lose. Who's that killer? Well, we're going to find out pretty soon enough. But let's now get to the blurb. Who is Ama Pomaa, the author, for today?
So, Ama Pomaa is a Ghanaian storyteller. Her debut novel, A Time to Part, won first prize at the 2018 Girl Literary Awards. She writes inspirational fiction packed with a healthy dose of suspense. Her work explores social constructs, and the struggles of faith. She lives in Accra under the name Letitia Apong, moonlighting as an engineer.
And I might add, by the way, that Ama Pomaa, or should I say Letitia Apong, a.k.a. Ama Pomaa is a nom de plume. She's actually been here before on one of our reviews. So she's an author, and she also comes through for review. Fantastic. Okay, so let's start from the start. How did you find this book, The Ones We Find? I'll start with you, Akusia.
The Ones We Find, I'd be very honest, When I began reading, I was wondering if I was going to be a very bad candidate for this review because I wasn't impressed.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, how could you write so plainly? I can guess everything that's going to happen. What exactly am I reading this for?
And then?
I was just in the first 2 chapters, and I kept reading, and suspense kept building up, and she holds you in her thrall. I don't know how to explain it. Her writing style was pretty. It was captivating. It kept you engrossed. You couldn't put the book down. I've shared this.
That's one thing
already.
I found. It's difficult to put the book down. I mean, she starts very simply. You know, there are different writing styles. Some start, boom. It was the middle of winter, and and then you are all. But she starts pretty slow, and then she starts accelerating, and the webs start forming.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she got you, huh?
It was super. I'd buy every one of her books I can afford.
Wow.
Every one.
Okay.
That's a
I think this would be a glowing
I can
tribute
afford.
to her that you can afford. That you can
Yes.
afford. Yeah,
Yes.
we've noted that. We've noted that. But
She's great.
I guess that also alludes to the fact that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover.
Cover.
Yes.
How about you, Nelly? How did you find this book?
To be honest, I read it all in one night, so that should tell you something.
You did?
I did.
One night.
Yes. Kept on.
So that was a night when ECG decided to give you light.
Oh no, ECG was quite good that day.
Oh, okay.
So shout out to ECG for that.
Yay.
No, but it was quite good. I couldn't put it down. I think a lot of it. I think probably this is also something that books do. You find yourself sort of reflecting on your own life as you're reading through it, and I think that she made it very relatable. A lot of the characters, a lot of the things that they went through, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking about my life and who I am, and if I should start changing things, etc. But she does it in such a way that you don't feel the burden of reading. I think, as you said, it's hard to put it down once you start. And she does it so beautifully, and she touches on so many things, so many different facets of our lives in such a beautiful way. And I don't even know how she's able to weave them all together. Like, it's brilliant, honestly.
Well, Ama Pomaa is brilliant. She's a brilliant author, and I think part of why we're doing her book is I think she needs a lot more attention. 2018 Ghana Association of Writers Awards Best Novel, but I mean, she does so much fantastic work, and I feel she should be out there a lot more. Let's talk about themes and characters and maybe style. I mean, we've delved into the style already. Themes and characters. I'll come to you first. And with characters, you can tell me your favorite character and why.
Okay, so my favorite character is, I don't know whether to say anti-rider or anti-reader, but I think the
She
thing...
must be writing something. I don't know.
The thing I loved about her is her courage to stand outside of society's expectations.
Okay.
I think that sometimes when you find such people, you think that it's easy to just go against the grain, but it's not. It's a very conscious decision, and her ability to stand in the gap for others to do the same. In terms of themes, 2 of them really stood out to me. I think number 1, I would term the burden of societal expectations.
Okay.
And underneath that, having some sub-themes around like truth, fear, perception. And then the second one, that let me make sure that I haven't forgotten this, is that of generational trauma.
You're talking of Marilyn, her mother,
and then
the continuity, and then Hannah, her daughter.
Yes, her daughter.
Right.
And how that sort of perpetuates over time through sort of repetition and teaching the next generation to do the same things that sort of damage the generation after that. And then if you're in Africa, eventually you end up saying it's a generational curse. But so those 2 things really stood out to me. Should I go into like other characters?
Yeah, you can, briefly.
I think that the 2 male characters of Cyril, Marilyn's husband, and David, Marilyn's, I don't know what to call him, pseudo-love interest / professional colleague, I think really had me questioning what do we define as good and what are our perceptions around that. And I hope that as we go further, we're able to delve a bit more.
We'll be able to explain that. For you, so you can look at themes, and then we can also get to know your, well, characters that stood out for you, and which one was your most favorite?
Favorite would be a difficult one to answer. But I'd like to commend Marilyn.
Right.
I think she, well, the character that was played was a great one. She started out as someone who was almost clueless, but whom her boss believed in very much. And she was a bit timid in the beginning, but she was dedicated to finding out what had happened, you see, and she went all the way to the end. And what stood out for me, what made me like her so much, was how she decided not to let that generational traits continue with her. So she made a decision that would make her be there for Hannah. And that made me stand up and give her a round of applause. And
that also stands out for parents with children with special needs sometimes, and how to take care of them, because Hannah did have, her own issues that she needed dealt with.
Anyways, one of the themes that I saw in the book was motherhood, parenthood. Sometimes we think our parents are somehow not very pleasant people to be around. But many times the things they do are just the best way they know how to. And their main aim is to get the best for their children. They may make some mistakes, but that's what they knew at that time. You see Christina's mother. Yes, Christina's mother. I didn't really like her in the beginning. But then I realized she'd gone to Cyril to beg him to stay with. Look, I'm saying Christina's mother. Marilyn. Christina, that's Marilyn's mother. Gone to Cyril to.
It was almost as though he were doing Marilyn a favor.
Yes.
Because she had had a child at 15. And so to speak, it also points to the fact that once that happens, and what disgustingly, but we know the term, they call born one here, it means you're literally damaged to goods. And that's the mentality. So that's what weaves in from that portion of the book. And so it appeared that he was rather, doing a favor to Marilyn. Those on Marilyn's side will think, you are doing him a favor. But from his end, it was as though he were doing her a favor. Okay, so let's get into the book proper now. So it starts off with Marilyn, Femi, some action going on. They meet at a site, and it's this big, cement-producing company, Tiger Cement. And Marilyn has been called in to resolve a mechanical problem. She sweats a lot, but in a matter of about 2 hours, she gets it done. Femi had been lurking in the background. Femi, who should have been the one on call, the engineer on call, complains of a stomach ache. So that's where I'll take it from as I start. Page 20. During that meeting, Femi felt faint, so they got him to the infirmary. That was about 9 in the morning. He complained of a stomach ache, which they gave him some drugs for. But then he passed out, so Marco's driver with the nurse on duty at the site's infirmary rushed him to the hospital. Unfortunately, they had to try out 3 hospitals before they finally got one with a bed available to admit him around noon. The doctors tried to stabilize him while conducting tests, but it was too late. He died a few hours later. Marilyn gripped the arms of her chair, a hospital bed. So if Femi lived anywhere else in the world, in a country with working systems, he'd probably still be alive. God, what he must have gone through in his final hours. I should have waited. Do they know what killed him? The doctors would only speak to his family. I got a hold of his wife in the afternoon, and she came over right away. And then at the end, it says, Marilyn scanned the faces in the room. Methanol poisoning? Was anyone thinking what she was thinking? That's part of the introduction to the book. But something that struck me, the whole bit about if he had lived anywhere else in the world and having to go to 3 hospitals, and it's only in the 3rd one that they could find a bed. That struck me because I've been through that, and I don't know about you guys, but that's the system here. But then again, we get introduced to the fact that something has happened to Femi. What do we get exposed to at this point? I'll start with you, Nelly.
I mean, to be quite honest, when I read this portion, I didn't know what the big deal was with Marilyn scanning the faces to figure out what other people were thinking, because I'm like, methanol poisoning, okay, he was poisoned. Why is this a big deal? So at the point, I was sort of wondering, yeah, exactly what it was that she was thinking that was so obvious to her alone and no one else, apparently. So that was like one of the things. I think the second thing, and I'd also sort of bookmarked this or made some scribbles beside it, this idea of him having to go to 3 different hospitals before getting a bed. And I think it's so realistic because we've heard, like on the radio, so many other stories of people who've had to go through similar things. I think the most recent one for me was a lady who actually died due to delays in moving her from one hospital to another, some payments with Momo, etc. And it just made me really sad, honestly, thinking about it, because why does geography have to play such a huge role in something as basic as the right to live or the right to healthcare, right? And it had me reflecting a lot on sort of the state of our country as is, and what we can do to make it better, if there is a way to make it better.
It also gets you, I mean, that portion gets you thinking about why sometimes we pretend everything is right when everything isn't. You remember Femi, before his passing, had asked about how she and her husband were doing. She was like, oh, we've never been better and everything in there. There was fire on the mountain, wasn't there? Akusia.
Perhaps she'd grown used to it.
Had she? They had been dating for a year. They had been married for a year. They were just about celebrating their first anniversary. And Femi sensed there was something, but she wouldn't let on. And she pretended everything was right. But we know things were not exactly right.
But you know, could Femi have done anything about it?
But why did she pretend? Why do you think? And I'm asking this as some sort of societal, we tend to pretend about certain things. I tend to be blunt about certain things, and I see that our society doesn't like that. But we pretend about certain things to our own detriment.
Really? It depends on who you're speaking to.
Who's asking? I see. But Femi and Marilyn were this close.
And it could be the time also. You know, they were on the work site, and it wouldn't be a good place to talk about anything.
Yeah.
So she probably just thought not the right place. I mean, you really don't want to put all your business out there like that.
What was really happening with Marilyn and her husband?
So according to the book, apparently Cyril was a virgin when he got married. And,
why did he have to laugh about that? The way you laughed about it, almost as though it were a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. No,
yo,
bad thing.
When you think about it, it could easily be a
guys,
bad
what's up? Chill for the guys.
Bad thing. I'm chilling.
No, because look at Cyril's character.
Right.
You see, I'm young. I've not seen life, but I don't see why he should all of a sudden change his attitude toward Marilyn because she has a child.
Yeah, that was a bit weird, but it was also because he had expectations and she hadn't told him. That's the whole. She hadn't been honest to tell him she had a child at 15. And so later, even when you read the book, at some point, even when they were trying to make up, he was like, we can go ahead with this and all of that, but no, that child is like a chapter that shouldn't ever be. I felt a bit sad about that, but it was also about why did she not tell the truth?
But can I interject there?
Please.
So this is why I cannot give Cyril any flowers here, right? Now, the day before the wedding, fine, you find out that she's not a virgin, she's had a child before, yada, yada. You walk away, you leave her, you walk away. Now, the point at which you made a decision to come back is the point at which she no longer has to apologize for it. Because at that point, you're making a choice. You know at this point that this woman has had sex in the past. You know at this point that she has a daughter. So when you come back, and you decide to go forward with the wedding, all bets are off the table. Like, I'm not going
Wait,
to...
did he know before the wedding? He did not
He
know.
knew one day before the wedding, and he walked away.
But that's too little time to,
But he walked away, Benjamin. He walked away. You had a choice. You could have left. You chose.
So the blame is on the guy now?
I'm not saying that the blame is on the guy. I'm saying that you listening to his mother and coming back means that you do not get to make her live her life in constant apology for something that you now know and
but there was a deal. There was a deal, a seeming deal that, yes, we're going ahead, but your daughter is not. For some reason, you get the impression that Marilyn went ahead with that. She actually, let's blame her too, because she was basically selling out on her own daughter. Yes, agreeing to the fact that, okay, yes, let's go ahead with our lives, but minus... I think that wasn't right on either side, on both sides. Neither of them was. Because this is a human being. The child is a human being.
Yes.
She deserves to be loved and all of that. And when you look at her state with, Marilyn's mother and all of that, you can see that it's not the best. She's being teased at school. Marilyn was supposed to be there for that child. Mm-hmm. She wasn't. In fact, she admits it in the book.
Yeah, she does. And then she rectifies it.
Exactly.
Rectifies, huh? Okay,
yes.
Let's come back to Femi. Femi has died of methanol poisoning, which doesn't usually happen. Now, the point to be made is Femi had, when he was a teen, a youth, somehow ended up, after boarding school, ended up with the wrong crowd, got into the consumption of alcohol. One day he's driving some friends, I think there are 3 of them in there, veers off the road, and guess what? Accident. He kills 3 people. His father has to intervene, legal matters, they pay off the families and all of that. Clean slate, he goes ahead. But from that day, he learned a lesson. He decided never to go close to alcohol again. In fact, he had the tattoos of the names of his 3 friends on his body. So it is a bit surprising to hear that he has died of methanol poisoning, someone who had for 20 years or so been alcohol-free. Now, that's what ticks off Marilyn. Tell us a bit about why exactly and why she's so convinced about the goodness of the heart of Femi.
Well, I think it comes down to what you talked about, people not being willing to open up. Femi and Marilyn were close, yes. Mm-hmm. And Femi had relapsed in a sense.
He had?
After some years of staying clean of alcohol, he'd had a lot going on and he'd gone back to it and he hadn't mentioned to Marilyn. Perhaps he was ashamed that he'd had to.
It's an addiction after all.
But
yeah. But I think if I can come in here, yeah. No, but I think one of the reasons why Marilyn found it so hard to believe that Femi went back was his family. This was a family man with 2 kids he adored, right? And through her interactions with him, it was very clear that this was something that was a priority for him. So even beyond the sort of trauma of having killed 3 people, he had too much to lose to go back to alcoholism. Right. It just didn't make sense.
Didn't.
Yeah.
Perhaps he could have gotten some more help if he'd spoken to, okay, he was with the other group, the AA.
No, I think it was a domestic violence support group.
Well, it still solves the issue. Because he was speaking to someone about the challenges he was facing.
So he was seeking help.
He was seeking help.
But whether that help was enough was another matter altogether. But Marilyn, of course, didn't know any of this.
Mm-hmm.
And she found it surprising that there was alcohol involved, in fact, methanol. So poisoning, some were wondering, was it an accident? But if you read the story, then the detectives, of course, also came in. And then a bottle is found in his car and all of that. So it's more like, the guy was drinking, he overdid it. In fact, the Inspector Shamsuddin, Detective Shamsuddin, even painted the picture that this dude he had relapsed for months.
Yeah.
But Marilyn would keep on pursuing this because she had faith in who Femi was, which would lead her to a hospital. Now, what happens at the hospital? Because there's something interesting there, also about corruption.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read that portion. In fact, let me just get to that portion so we get to it. Let's get right to it. The man accepted 206 CDs she had left in her purse and slotted it into his pocket swiftly. The next time she condemned the deep-seated corruption woven into the country's systems, she'd feel like a fraud. Okay, he glanced at his phone. The patient presented with blurred vision, drowsiness, and epigastric pain. His stock screen disclosed a high serum methanol concentration. It looks like your friend died of methanol poisoning. Marilyn nodded. Okay, there it was. Is it possible the lab got it wrong? No. I have his name right here, Femi Uzuechi. Not that. Could there have been a mistake in the results? No. Why? Because my friend, the patient, he didn't drink. The man laughed. Mami we pa. Is that what he told you? It's the truth. Have you considered that your friend lied to you? He grinned. If there's one thing you should know, it's that we men, we lie. That's no, it's nothing like that. Okay, that one is none of my business, madam. But anyway, you could be right. With methanol poisoning, you're looking at accidental consumption of the substance, suicide, or in some cases, murder. And then it goes on and on. I don't know, though, whether he was speaking for all men when he was going, we men, we lie. He should speak for himself. Anyway.
But do men not
Are you saying it's not true?
It is not.
It's not true.
When he makes it sound like women lie too.
Well, I mean,
We've not spoken about women.
yeah.
And there are very decent men like yours truly who try very hard not to go down that slippery slope. I know you try to, maybe not always successfully. But let's get into this. One thing that hits you, of course, the goroism and the fact that she doesn't even see this guy. He approaches her and is willing to sell someone's health information, medical information, which is actually illegal. But through that, she learns a few things.
Well, I'd like to say that this is one thing I commend Ama for, Ama Pomaa. I think her writing covers on a lot of things in society. And you can even see how this is something very little, but you can see we're all corrupt in some way.
The system will get you.
So it talks about the real deals. Sometimes people even have to pay for beds at hospitals. Here she had to pay for some information. But information that came in handy because it led her down a certain road. And then she investigated further. What does she find out after that, Lily?
After the hospital, let me see if I remember correctly.
So I'm fast forwarding a bit. It doesn't have to be in the immediate. But from there, she also, she goes to the hospital, finds out about that, and she starts snooping around, going to different places. Where does she go?
To be quite honest, off the top of my head, I've sort of forgotten what she does next from
Okay,
but
so we can talk about the fact that from the hospital, she starts asking questions at the office.
Yes.
Her office.
Yes.
She does.
Savi. Then she also is led to the hotel, a hotel where supposedly Femi had gone. And she's like, how did this happen? In fact, because per Liza, Femi's husband, he was supposed to have gone to work on Monday. But guess what? He had been on leave. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so she figures out he had been on leave on Monday, and I think they'd gone to the hotel for something, and the person...
Some golden something.
Yeah, some event or something, and the manager of the hotel used to be someone that they used to patronize. So she comes out to Marilyn, they're chatting, and then she asks after Femi, and Marilyn is like, Femi is dead. And the one is like, oh my gosh, we need to go to his room, gather his stuff. And Marilyn's like, what do you mean? What room are you talking about? And she's like, oh yeah, Femi was staying here. It's like, how is that possible? This doesn't match up with the things that I've been hearing. So how is he here? You know, that sort of thing, which leads her to like sort of further investigations, and ultimately she finds out that at the time, I don't know, but anyway, at the time, Femi was also consulting with another firm, and there was a lady who worked there. So they find this.
So the
footage.
Artemis Innovation
Exactly.
entity.
Artemis.
Now, this was more like a startup and where he was a big firm. So
yeah.
Marilyn was confused. What's going on?
So she figures out that he's considering making the move from the big firm to the smaller firm for reasons unknown to Marilyn at the point. And there's a lady that works at the smaller firm who they see on the camera in the hotel.
Which is Adelaide.
With Femi. So now Marilyn has another clue. She goes to Artemis to try and figure out how she can get to Adelaide to speak to her.
But this she finds out after having spoken to Adelaide the first time. Adelaide is this pretty lady. She has a bit of an ear issue through what she claims was a burned house and her ear getting burned. But it's only later when Detective Shamsuddin shows that, listen, your friend, the Femi guy who never drinks, here he is at this hotel. And then there's a lady. The lady has glasses on, a scarf and everything. You know, typical of like a movie where someone... And they ask her, do you know this lady? She says no, but she knows it is Adelaide in there. What happens after that? What do you recall happening after that incident? Then she starts looking for...
Yes, the manhunt for Adelaide. She goes to the office again. Adelaide is not there.
Adelaide has resigned.
She's resigned.
Like, hey.
So then it gets more interesting. Why should she resign just a day after?
She was questioned about them, yeah.
So now she tries to find Adelaide at her residence. And then the neighbors say there's no one like that who lives there anymore or something.
Yeah, but
then they have this bar or place where people gather every Saturday. And so then she waits and then goes there and has the meeting with the people. And then Adelaide walks in, bearing a different name even. So she's been on the matter
But let's talk about Adelaide just a bit.
Okay.
So we'll have to take a break shortly, but Adelaide is pretty reserved, even where she used to live. Practically no one, like Adelaide is not on social media. She's not on the apartment platform, WhatsApp platform.
She's a fugitive.
Adelaide is mum. Why was that the case?
So she was running away from her abusive ex-husband. So being off the grid makes sense because you don't want to give the person any clues on how to find you. We actually find out that subsequently the ear thing, the said fire was actually caused by said ex-husband who apparently love is by force. So, so who was not understanding that I don't want to do again.
I won't do again.
Like, if I can't have you, nobody else can have you.
You're typical I
you see.
I see. Well, it's getting interesting. We'll have to take a little breather here. And when we return, I'll be giving you my word in action and we'll proceed with the rest of the review. Don't worry, we'll fast track it, but we do recommend that you grab a copy of this book, The Ones We Find by Ama Pomaa. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're still here with Ama Pomaa, the author of The Ones We Find. If you've missed the first half, don't miss the second. It's full of intrigue, love, deceit, abuse, and a whole lot in between. And you should grab a copy of this book, The Ones We Find by Ama Pomaa. But time now for me to give you my word in action. And the word is sachet. No, not the one you drink water from. Sachet, spelled S-A-S-H-A-Y. Sachet. And this is what it means. It's a verb and it means to walk confidently while moving your hips from side to side in a way that attracts attention. Sachet, S-A-S-H-A-Y. To walk confidently while moving your hips from side to side in a way that attracts attention. You know, it's only one of our species that will do that. So we're talking about our women. An example is, she sashayed down the stairs and into the hall. But I picked that word because it's one of the words in the book. It's used on page 97. And here's how Ama Pomaa uses it. She says, she turned. Alberta sashayed to her side in a flamboyant pink skirt. She turned. Alberta sashayed to her side in a flamboyant pink skirt. It gives you an idea of how Alberta was walking. And that's our word in action for today. But as we continue with the discussion, I'd like us to read a bit from page 124. In fact, just the tail end of it. So yes, page 124. Would you like to do us the honors, Akosia?
Can you honestly?
124, yes.
From what point?
From the start.
Okay. I understand that I have to earn your trust, but I did tell you everything, and you just said you were ready to turn the page. I also said something was holding me back. Well, what is it? You know what? He raised an eyebrow. That night, you said she wouldn't be a part of our lives, ever. And then you went to see her. Marilyn bowed her head. She should have known it was always going to come back to this. Here, where it all started to fall apart. Can you honestly say that it won't happen again? That there won't be any reminders of this person that you used to be? Because it's the only way this works. I don't want our life together to start with another man's child hanging over our heads. Cyril leaned forward. We need a fresh start. And your daughter cannot be a part of that equation. Not now, not ever. If you can do that, then we have a chance. If not, then I don't know.
So this goes back to what we spoke about, Cyril and Marilyn. Is that something, let's practicalize this. Caught in that same situation, having given birth at 15, having a girl child who was it deaf? And that had somewhat been hidden because your mother failed, and then finding a man to marry and not telling the man until a day before your wedding and everything. So now your mother even feels the man is doing you a favor and everything. How differently do you feel you would have handled this situation? I'm curious.
Do I feel like in the shoes of Marilyn?
Yes.
Well, she's done the best she could. You see, telling Cyril a day before the wedding means she didn't intend to be malicious.
But at that point, it's practically impossible to turn your back.
Why not?
No, well, he did even.
Yeah,
he did go walk away.
And people say I don't all the time at the altar. People say I don't. Yeah. You have.
Now we're getting options, guys. We're getting options,
No, I mean, if you are standing at the altar and the Holy Spirit ministers to you, you have to do what you have to do.
Okay.
I think Marilyn tried. She may have had cold feet in the beginning, which explains why she waited till the end, the very end. But I honestly cannot see why that's a problem. I don't want a life together to start with another man's child hanging over our heads. Well, I'm not a man. I've never been, I'll never be. But I don't see why it should be a problem. People make mistakes. She's kept it away, but should she forever pay for it? Like Nelly said.
Thank you.
Why did she feel the need to hide it up to that point, though? I mean, I'm also trying to look at the roots of some of why we do what we do. Society?
Perhaps.
But then also, I think...
Like you said, people see born ones as damaged goods.
Yeah. But I'd actually take it a step further. Society, yes, but society through her mother, right?
Through the eyes of her mother.
Through the eyes of her mother, because from the time she got pregnant, every single action that was taken was telling her that there was something wrong with her. There was something that, shipping her off to her auntie, hiding her away, Cyril is a good man, you have to, nobody else will want you without it. And all of these messages, all of these things keep on reinforcing the idea that somehow she's less than because of this one thing that happened in her life. And so she must be grateful for any little crumb that she gets. Personally, and to answer your question, he could have bent himself and gone to drown himself in the sea. It's not by force. He can go.
Now that's a very violent way of looking at it. He could have gone to burn the sea, yeah? Okay, all right.
You should clear out.
But now the way she gets on his face, like he could clear out.
Something else.
Okay. But then, I mean, moving on from there, we also get to see a bit about, in Marilyn's bid to still uncover. She's been to the hospital, gathered some information. She's been to Adelaide's workplace, gathered some information. And then she goes as far as going to look for someone who had worked at Artemis Innovation, aka Isaiah Blankson. Now, what is the interaction with Isaiah like, Nelly? Just in a summary. Isaiah.
I like the way you're putting me on the spot.
Isaiah was okay. So let me.
Can I put the on
Isaiah, yes, I could talk about Isaiah.
Isaiah Blankson he claimed he had started with this company when they had nothing. He was basically, working things out. Then they sort of promised that he will soon be made project manager and all of that. Before he realizes, they bring in this Femi guy. Oh, he should help him around. He's joining the team. So unbeknownst to him, Femi is going to be the project manager. And he's like, what the heck? I've been with you guys. So the interaction. Now, Marilyn goes to his home pretending to be a reporter. What happens there?
Well, she begins to ask him questions about the death of Femi and all of that. And then he gets offensive and defensive, And he's like, why are you asking me questions? Where do you say you're from again? This man, we worked together. I've been prepping for this position, and all of a sudden he's brought in and I hear I'm being laid off.
He was pained.
And then angry because now it looks like the death is being put on him or something. But it looked a bit too much to be true. It looked like it would have been too plain. Yes. Yeah. To think that he.
And she even felt when she accused him, she asked a question. His anger, she said, if she had learned anything from the movies, it meant that he wasn't the one who had committed it, because he was literally fuming, and he had a dog by his side.
Yeah.
But here's another suspect that we've not spoken of. At least Marilyn thought she was a suspect. Let's go to page 186. Nelly, if you could read a portion for us from the top of page 186.
Okay, so it says, footsteps approached and a figure appeared around the corner. Marilyn sighed. Of all the spots she could have picked, Naomi held out a keep fob and a Nissan Sentra beside Marilyn bled. She kept her eyes on her phone. A door opened and then closed again. Learning your place and giving the people above you their due respect will serve you well in your young career and spare you a world of trouble, Naomi said. You will do well to remember that going forward. Marilyn decided on silence, but her lips moved anyway. Is that what you told Femi when he was promoted over you?
Shots fired.
Naomi recalled, watch the way you talk to me, young lady. Or what? You'll get rid of me too. I beg your pardon. It's just as here, Naomi, you can admit to what your envy drove you to do. You think I was jealous of him? You told everyone just as much the minute you opened your mouth. Naomi shook her head. You have so little understanding of how this world works. There are over 30 employees in this company. Men outnumber women 10 to 1. I was hired 2 years after Femi. In 8 years, I've never been promoted. Not once. And yet, the one with the penis is promoted twice. You want to talk about taking credit? I was the one who conceived the project for the Africa Energy Conference. It took months to get stakeholders to the table and a year to finally push it through. And when it came time for glory, they told me our customers would be more receptive if the reception came from a technical guy. But I know it had more to do with the guy than the technical. Should I continue?
Go ahead.
Okay. So the guy was handed the position that I earned. And what do you think Femi said? No, thank you. Did he turn the opportunity down? Of course not. He grabbed it with both hands. How's that for stooping low?
Okay, so you can wrap there, but she goes on, and she even suggests that, okay, I'm sure Alex, the boss, has told you that likely you'll be replacing Femi, right? Yeah, until they find a technical guy. This portion got me because it also talks about the reality of, they say it's a man's world. I don't know, in your experience, and I like to be practical about some of these things, is it really a man's world? Is the workspace that unfair? I have seen things in different workplaces, but from where you come, is this reality or not? Or is it a reality that's getting better?
I don't think I can speak to that much because I don't have a lot of experience in the workspace. I would have thought that women are not as disadvantaged as many people I mean, in the workspace, it's something different because of pregnancies and, what do you call it, maternity leaves and all of that. But really, with empowerment, women empowerment and everything, I think women are even stronger, getting better options, getting better.
I agree with you, but the reality too, for example, if you look at CEOs, top CEOs in the country and all of that, the number of women is like a drop in a bucket. That's the reality.
Yeah,
so there are different dynamics. I mean, in academia, you find a bit more women, affirmative action and all of that. But the reality too is that when you're tipping the scales at the very top, I mean, look at Parliament. How many women are in there? Look at ministers in the cabinet and all of that. I mean, these are some imbalances that can be looked at. Nelly, quick point on that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and also, even when you look at the way in which women need to appear in the workplace in order to even make it to those positions that Benjamin is talking about, right? And we see it in somebody like Naomi because she's brash, she's like, you know, I hate to use it, but appears very masculine. You see a lot of like hatred coming at her for something that if she was a man and she did in the workplace, everybody would be applauding her, right? So there's a lot more sort of like strategy and tactics that needs to go into being a woman in a workplace if you want to rise up, that sort of thing. Threading that line between not wanting to offend people because women are supposed to be soft, they're supposed to be affable, they're supposed to be, but at the same time, you also need to get, pardon my French, get shit done. And like, you know, so how do you straddle that line to be effective but not offensive? Right.
And that, of course, sometimes when you're a woman and you get that, then there's a pushback from the system as well. So I guess it's walking the tightrope. But let's get back to Femi. I want us to do this, especially as time winds down, right? I want us to look at the rectangle or square. Femi, Liza, Marilyn, and Adelaide, and how their worlds actually collide. And then there's a certain David Noah, who is a bad boy that we've not met yet. David, let's just focus on David a bit. He is working with this entity from South Africa and all of that. That's all we know about him. And when you're introduced to the story, you actually see him as this affable guy. But what we don't know is...
David. Well,
unlike the one in the Bible.
he comes up as someone who's very efficient at what he does. He's a businessman. He's disciplined and everything. And then he becomes like some kind of lover boy in the middle of the story, giving Marilyn a listening ear, being there, bumping into her at the shop and all that. And then...
and he talks to her about the fact that was a woman who was in his life 5 years ago that he's trying to get back. In fact, if you follow the interactions, desperately trying to get back.
So I think it gave us a hint as to his controlling nature. We didn't really look at it. So
there are red flags. We don't see them until... Okay. So what else would you say about David?
God.
So we are taking the characters one by one.
Yeah.
Before we get to the end.
I actually had this thing written beside it. When David first appeared, I think his first interaction with Marilyn was giving her advice on... and I was like, oh, Femi is dead. Now she has a new mentor. And look at him, like, you know, mentoring her. Oh, God. Anyway, it had me questioning my whole judgment. But am I allowed to reveal who he is?
Not yet.
Okay. So he comes in, he's playing a mentorship role, guiding Marilyn through, and it's like God has brought in another mentor. You know, Femi is dead, but the Lord will not leave you hanging, guys. He talked about the fact that he's really in love with his ex-wife. He's changed. He's willing to do whatever to get her back. It's like, oh my gosh, when he loves,
cute.
You know, when he loves somebody, my goodness, you have to fight for love.
You're in the spirit.
I am.
We understand. Go get your woman. You understand me? Do what is necessary to let her know that things have changed. We are not the same. Oh, God. Let me just leave it there.
Because it's not what met the eye wasn't what was beneath the veil. But then there's Adelaide. What would you say about Adelaide? Briefly, and then we'll go to Liza as well.
Adelaide from whose point of view? Adelaide is someone Femi
Adelaide
met.
from David's point of view.
Oh, David.
Adelaide is
wife.
Yes.
So Adelaide is his ex-wife, who was also at Artemis Innovation, which is where Femi ended up working.
Exactly.
And the same Adelaide that Marilyn found weeping her eyes out and claiming, oh, she was close to Femi, and that was it. The same Adelaide that we found in the hotel on a CCTV camera. Then there's Liza. What would you say about Liza?
Femi's wife.
Liza was a big TV personality. So no one expected that she'd be abusive toward her husband.
Yeah.
And I found that interesting because a lot of the time, there are men getting abused, but they can't come out and say it. Again, it boils down to societal pressures. Now you guy, you say your Charlie.
It's not easy.
You say she abuse you. No, why can't guy be you? You know? So, you know? So I think when men are abused, it's even worse. Because then it's few and far between, but it's worse.
Yeah.
You have to just keep quiet and take it till maybe someday they blow up, and unfortunately. So that was the situation. Yeah. Liza, big star on TV, everyone loved her, but little did we know that she was abusing her husband, Femi. But you see, at a point, the book even mentions that Femi is ugly. I found it a bit... I found it a bit...
People give small hints.
You remember the woman, the old lady, where Adelaide was, when she was describing the man she had seen? She actually said, middle-aged, he looked rich, ugly. And immediately, Marilyn thinks, oh no, that's Femi. It was the recognition for me. Okay, so that is Liza. And who else did I mention? So David, Adelaide, Liza, and Marilyn. So now we're going to the end. I want us, because of time, and of course, we want people to go and grab a copy of the book, not just tell them the entire story. So this David guy that we know to be Mr. Nice Guy, apparently...
He's a sociopath, a murdering sociopath.
So, he was behind Femi's death.
Yes.
But the question is why?
Because Adelaide being his ex-wife, he was trying to get her back desperately. He thought it was cute, he was actually crazy. Now, he's been following Adelaide around, and Adelaide at the time, because she was close to Femi, had been supporting Femi with the domestic violence issues. So David following them, they don't know David is following them. And in a moment of weakness, Adelaide and Femi end up kissing in the car one day. David sees this, and in his mind, he's like, Oga, this is my goal in life. You are coming for, you must be eliminated. So David then hires Femi's company and then insists that Femi should be the one to work on his project. So Femi's boss, Alex, another whole character, you should read the book, tells Femi to go meet David. Femi goes to meet David, and at that time, Femi had gotten some news about his marriage that had put him in a very vulnerable state. So David is able to convince Femi to drink. Unknown to us, David had put some poison in the drink, and that's how Femi ends up dead.
Okay, so that explains Femi's death. But the question then, does he get Adelaide back? That was the end game. Does he?
He
doesn't.
In a suitcase, yes.
And what happens to him, though? Does he get apprehended for his crime?
Well, at the very end of the story, we see that he's found out, and then he's taken away. But I don't know what happens then.
Yeah, no. So he's
arrested
killed
twice. He's attempted to kill 2 others.
Yeah, and even attempts to kill Marilyn, which is how he ends up being found out. But
we had to stress that because crime doesn't pay.
Yeah.
But our review today has been focused on The Ones We Find by Ama Pomaa. We didn't tell the whole story. Go grab a copy and enjoy it for yourself. But thank you very much, Akosia Nyansa-Lund, for joining the conversation. I look forward to making my hair look like yours. And thank you very much, Nelly Ajuman-Jemfi, for joining the conversation as well.
Thank you for having me.
And to the rest of you, let's look forward to next week and our next review. Thank you for watching.